Okay, cool. Let's make a start then. We've got to have our little video introduction, as is always compulsory at the Welsh User Group, so let's get through that now.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Patenka and I'm a Cloud Solution Architect for Microsoft.
Hey everybody, my name is John Lunn, aka Johnny Chips, and I'm a technical architect and I work for BT Enterprise in the UK.
My name is Ahmed Laja and I'm a Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft.
Hi, I'm Anna McNally. I'm a Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft.
Hi, my name is George Washira. I work for the Intellectual Property Office as a Senior Engineer for the End User Services.
I'm Richard Griffiths and I'm the Cloud Solutions Architect at Confused.com.
Hi, I'm Abul Kaya. I work as a Technical Payment Specialist for Clearbank.
Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to the May Welsh Azure User Group virtual event. So yeah, we've been playing that little video. I know it might be a little bit juddery. I'm going to think of a different way of broadcasting that in future. But yeah, it's just a little video just to show like who's behind the scenes here with sorting out the all the great content and speakers that we have coming down to the Welsh Azure User Group. I say coming down, I mean that in the virtual sense, of course. So yeah, I mean up on the screen there, as always, for the regulars that attend this event quite often every month, you'll probably know a few of us now that are kind of behind the scenes with the user group. But as always, this is a community user group. If you're new, thanks so much for joining us for the first time. It's really great to have you. You know, we're obviously trying to push the community out in and around South Wales, and as I was just saying earlier, because we're virtual, we get everything but people from Wales, which is cool. You know, it's brilliant. So thanks everybody for joining us as always. There's always a few little treats in store and quiz prizes as we've just been alluding to. So yeah, as always, this is a community user group. So if there's anything, comments, feedback, we'll put a thing up at the end of the session tonight. Feedback's always welcome, and if you've got any ideas or suggestions, or you want to speak, obviously reach out to any of us. Our details are on the screen there. Okay, so on to tonight then. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what the agenda is going to look like tonight, we're keeping in fashion with, we introduced lightning talks into the user group a few months back, and they've been, I think, quite a big success. The feedback we've been getting from obviously everybody watching and on the feedback forums has been, you know, they're quite nice, snappy, 15-minute sessions from, community speakers, people in the industry that are really divulging some great information. So tonight we've got Wim Matthyssen on. He's going to be talking to us about Azure Advisor, as he phrases it, our in-house cloud consultant, which is pretty cool. And we've also got Peter Datacenter on. So in a sec, Peter's going to kick off with his session around what he's calling the container alphabet soup. So, hopefully remind me what all those acronyms actually mean and stand for. But yeah, so timing wise, this is what we're looking at. We tried to keep to this kind of lightning talk session, a couple of lightning talks at the beginning of the session, and what we're deeming this feature length event. And tonight, I believe it is a feature length event. I think we're looking at probably over an hour of an Azure virtual data center tour. So Mark is going to join us a little bit later, a little bit later on, and he's going to talk us through that. Okay, so as always, this is all open. Everybody's got control of their own microphones. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we're all adults here. I think we're all fairly reasonable. Let's be courteous to each other. It kind of goes without saying. There's no silly questions. The chat is open. If you've got any questions whatsoever as the sessions are going on, feel free to use the chat. Obviously, stay on mute, not to interrupt the speaker as they're speaking, and unless they invite you, of course, to come off mute, then that would be absolutely cool. Like I say, use the chat, any questions. Hopefully we'll get a time for the speakers to kind of either answer them as they're going, or a couple of minutes at the end of the session, their sessions, to kind of go through any questions you might have. And like I say, feedback is super important. We're always looking, we just having a chat there before we start the session about how you keep these events kind of engaging, the kind of things that we can show, without just recording a YouTube video and getting things up on, a streaming session. It'd be cool. So any ideas anybody's got, absolutely, we're all ears. It'd be great to hear any kind of feedback like that. And also, as always, we've got a quiz. We know that there's some quiz champions on the session at the moment. We're not naming any names in case they get scared away, all the other competitors. But yeah, we've got a Kahoot quiz. So if you don't know what Kahoot is, jump on. You can use it on your PC or download the mobile app. Get that done now as we go through the next couple of hours, and we've got a quiz at the end. So as always, we've got some Amazon vouchers. I think we've got some two £25 Amazon vouchers up for grabs in that quiz. So I think probably what we'll do is I think it's probably fair to say we'll do a first and second place prize. I think we're feeling pretty generous tonight in that regard. We tend to get some great feedback as well. So if you can stick around and give us that feedback, that would be absolutely brilliant. As we did last month, we're going to do another tweet and win. We want to help spread the word, of course, of the user group. I mean, the idea is at some point we're going to get back to face-to-face events, especially if you are from Wales. We're looking to grow that face-to-face, the ability to get people in the local area to hopefully at some point in the next few months, if everything falls, all the stars align and we get into the right alert level and things like that, hoping to get some of these face-to-face events. And I know we've had a talk in the group about how we're going to do those. And I think, the desire to keep the virtual element is absolutely there because we've got some brilliant people joining these sessions and supporting the group and, joining in, offering insights, experience. It's been fantastic. So obviously we don't want to just go face to face and never see you guys again. Of course not. It'd be great. We could fly you all to South Wales and do a face to face, but it'd be too expensive. I think Des's pockets don't go that deep, but absolutely. I think we'll think of some ways to obviously either keep the live streaming element to it, but anyway, we're probably a few months away from that anyway. So yeah, like I say, if you are in and around the area, or you've got contacts in companies in and around the area, please help us spread the word. It really does mean a lot. I think we're trying to infiltrate all Welsh business if we can, to kind of get techies like the majority of us probably as we are on the call, get them involved. We all know that it's giving up your time of an evening, but absolutely we want to get as many people involved as possible. So if you can tweet a win, I don't think we've come up with a theme for this evening's tweet a win. Just send me your most comical picture and we'll do a little bit of a random giveaway. So your prize for that, we'll get you a nice Welsh Azure user group t-shirt sent out, size of your choice, as long as it's large. So I can see Peter there pulling faces behind the thing. It's not off-putting at all. Right, and moving on. So only one quick announcement before we move in. So Anna McNally, obviously one of the organisers of the user group, she's been heavily involved in schools, and obviously Microsoft, some of the initiatives they got going on at the moment, we're going into schools and educating, our kids and across the country. I think it started off as an initiative around Wales and it's spread UK wide now. So she just wanted me to pop up this slide around DigiGirl. So the URL is at the top there. If you do have, kids in your family, or you're aware of any kind of girl guiding groups that you may be part of, pop them this link over, because Microsoft are obviously setting up this initiative now. There's going to be some, as the slide says there. So I think this particular day on the 4th of June, it's like 2 or 3 hour event for girls are aged around 10 to 16. They got some great Power Platform demos. They've got coding classes. So I mean, it's a great initiative. It's something close to my heart. I try and do a bit with my kids' schools when I can. So if you want to make a note of that URL and pass it on appropriately, that would be fantastic. And on that note, then a word from our sponsors. So Des, over to you.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Des McGuire. I'm the founder and Azure Solutions Director at Servant. We're an expert Azure partner based in the UK, do work all over the UK and beyond. And we're a proud sponsor of many user groups. So clearly this one, the Welsh one, the Northern Azure user group in Manchester, and the Glasgow one in our home city. And alongside me, rather than me just popping on the same spiel every time, I'm bringing members of the team along with me. And tonight we've got Nathan Bird, who's going to introduce himself and describe a bit that we've been doing, well, extensively with WVD for over 2 years, how we're pushing the limits of that product to enterprise scale. So biggest deployment we've done, 78,000 users so far. Nathan, do you want to say a few words?
Hi guys, yeah, Nathan Bird, Azure Cloud Architect at Servant. So I'm one of Des's technical leads, and Amongst other things across the last couple of years, all I've been doing really is Windows Virtual Desktop, and just coming along to meet some of you guys, and got a vast wealth of experience across the Azure platform in general. But yeah, what we're doing with WVD, I like to hear from other people about what they're doing, consultants, customers. As Des mentions, we're pushing the limits with it now and how that can scale, and working closely with the product team. And I attend a lot of community events, and they're driven by sponsors, the likes of Nerdio, and you hear from Citrix, and you hear from VMware, and how they are, creating management platforms for WVD. And I ask a lot of my customers, do you actually need them? Do you understand what Azure is and what you're looking to run on Azure, and what, if any, do those tools add? So we're looking at the native tooling and how that can help you run WVD at scale. And as Des says, we're up to 78,000 users in one environment. There's no third-party management tools in there. We're up to 22,000 in another education facility. So I hear quite a lot about issues and how it doesn't scale and things like that. So that's my job. That's what I do at Servant, and I'd really look forward to hearing anybody that's got any challenges around that, and just have that conversation.
Thanks, Nathan, and back to you, John. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nathan. Appreciate that, and yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Des, obviously for being a sponsor of our user group. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in the little sponsor section. Between Servant and obviously our other sponsor, Admiral, who are headquartered down in Cardiff, down in South Wales. Obviously, they're such a huge support, for those that kind of don't partake in user groups that often, if you're new to it. Without these guys and these guys' support, these groups would probably be a little bit drier. I mean, we're able to give away prizes, and like I think I joked about last month, I can't wait till we can get back to do a little bit face-to-face. And it's all through the support of the likes of Servant and Admiral. So obviously huge thanks to Des and the guys, and obviously Luke isn't on from Admiral tonight, but it goes without saying how much we appreciate the support from those guys. Just a quick word, I've left this slide in from a couple of months back now, but who isn't hiring at the moment? I mean, it's fantastic to see. I think it's probably fair to say, the amount of opportunity at the moment in the cloud space, let alone Azure. I think every time I open Twitter or LinkedIn, there is a company looking for half a dozen consultants, architects, cloud engineers. So, Admiral are no different. We're putting this up there now, and like I said last time, Servant are probably no different, Des as well. So, part of the user group absolutely is to kind of partake in the technical community and partake in sharing that information and experience and knowledge, but equally it's a networking opportunity for like-minded people. So if you are interested, there's Luke's details up on the screen there. Feel free to reach out, and Des won't mind me saying, I'm sure, Des, reach out to yourself if you are looking for that next move, or looking for some advice as to what kind of job you might be looking for. That's fundamentally what these user groups are all about, is kind of helping us all not just learn technically, but giving us all networking opportunities. So yeah, a huge thanks to the sponsors. So on to tonight. It's coming up to 6:45, and it's to be honest, it's great to have Peter and Wim on tonight, because I've been kind of flitting with Twitter over the last few months and speaking to the guys, and they're both absolutely awesome guys across the community. They do so much, but in so much content. Look, Peter's shaking his head. Don't be so modest, Peter. And the same with Wim. I think I reached out.
Quite shy.
But I think I put the session eyes out a few months back when we were looking at the lightning talks, and obviously, it's taken a few months to get through the backlog, to be honest, because I mean, like Peter and Wim, there's so many fantastic people out there in the community willing to jump on and share their knowledge and experience. So, I'm not blowing smoke anymore. I'm going to hand over to Peter, and I'm going to let him take us through his lightning talk. So huge thanks for joining us, Peter. Over to you.
I would say thank you for having me, first of all. And while you started, you were asking for a theme for tonight. I always introduce Belgium as beer, fries, waffles. And in the time when I was not doing Azure that much yet, and mainly working with desktops, I called myself a fat client, but I was well managed. Good. If all works out fine, you should be able to see some marketing about myself. I'm not going to spend too much time. I mean, it's not about me. It's about trying to squeeze in Azure Container Services in less than 15 minutes, which would be pretty challenging by itself. But in short, within Microsoft for about 2 years now, providing Azure technical training. It's the most obvious job role and job title within Microsoft in years. Before that was running my own company for about 10 years, and the last 8 years it was mainly Azure training, consulting, architecting all over the world. And as you said, pretty active in the community, because that's where for me everything started like 25 years ago, where Microsoft was organizing like technical days in Belgium, and you could literally talk to Microsoft folks asking questions, and I was like, this is so amazing, and I've been literally doing that, and I'm still doing a lot of that. So that's a bit about me. I'll share this one slide, maybe later on in Teams if you want to stay in touch. I'm on LinkedIn, pretty active on Twitter, and the part on the right-hand side might be interesting if I make it within 14 minutes. So I'll talk a little bit about my Azure alphabet soup and what it actually means. And it's a session that I presented, I don't know how many times, but never in 15 minutes. So I'm going to try something different and walking you through the container story, first of all, and next how you can move it into an Azure world in a couple of different ways, including some benefits, some watch-outs, and giving you some options to choose from. Now, I don't have time to explain what a container is, but if you look at a virtual machine, you could easily identify your operating system. You got some binaries in the middle. I don't know why it looks so ugly, but I'm not going to troubleshoot. And you're going to deploy your app, which would be a web application, a database server, a file server, nothing really important for now. What you're doing with a container is exactly the same. What is the same? We still have our application layers. So we still have an operating system. We still have binaries like .NET, NuGet packages, for example. We still have our application, the same web app, the same database, the same file server, or anything else. And why not some data inside the container, which would be the local web application source code. So technically, there's no real difference besides the fact there's a huge mistake here. There is no operating system in a container. What is the little piece of magic? It relies on the underlying host, and no surprise there, that would run Docker. Your Docker host can be pretty much anything. If you have a Windows 10 client, that's what I'm using. You install Docker Desktop, it runs fine. If you run Linux, that's fine. If you run a Windows server, a Linux server somewhere on premises, somewhere in a cloud environment, whichever you prefer, we can all support Docker containers running in that kind of platform. Now, what makes it interesting on Azure is, I'm just going to try and not make it that big. There we go. So we have this container object. I'll walk you through a demo later on how it works. And we're going to move it into Azure. So option one would be a virtual machine running Linux or Windows. You install the Docker tooling inside, and you can run your containers. Or you could move to ACI. That's the other part of the alphabet soup. You could move to, and that's a little bit awkward, Azure Web App for containers. Or you could use AKS, and that stands for Azure Kubernetes Service. So the first step is moving from our application source code, where I'm using a .NET app, just an easy example, that's currently running on a virtual machine. We do have the source code, and we're going to move this into a container. Like any good Microsoft developer, I'm using Visual Studio or VS Code, but my app is a little bit big for Visual Studio Code, and I'm so used to using it. So what we have is our traditional .NET application. I don't know if anyone in the audience is a developer, but it's a traditional .NET application, nothing super fancy about it. Now, to turn this into a Docker container, we need a little piece of magic, and that's called a Docker file. What is a Docker file? It's a little bit like an install script where you're going to define, hey, Docker engine, can you please reach out to Microsoft in this case, because it's a .NET application baseline image, where the baseline image is that bottom layer in my container diagram. where it provides you some kind of stripped down kernel. It's not like a full operating system, and it recognizes ASP.NET for the .NET Core 3.1 framework. If you're a Node developer, you're going to find containers for Node, for Java, and so many other flavors. In a Docker Hub, it's like GitHub for the container images. Next, we're going to inject our SDK because the container itself doesn't really know what it needs to do. It knows out of line number 3 that, hey, I need to recognize ASP.NET language. And if it's a 3.2, I have no idea what to do with it. So what we're going to do is injecting the SDK, which again for developers means we're going to turn this into a somehow running application. Then in between, I'm hiding 50 lines of code, not because I don't want to show them. It's literally copying all the different modules from my application. So that's not really the Docker file intelligence, I would say. Then we're going to move this into a build stage, like literally compiling the app, creating a .NET publish, like an artifact. It's like a web deploy zip file. Some of you might have remembered that in the good old IIS days, where the developer is giving you a zip file. Hey, sysadmin, can you please run this on your web server? That's literally what we're doing. And last, we're going to tell our container engine, when you start up, I want you to run .NET as the process, and I want you to run this specific application. So that's what we're doing. From there, we can run a little bit of magic. Up here, where you would normally compile your web application, you could click this button, Docker. It's going to run some process, and the outcome would be a Docker image. So what is a Docker image? It's a offline object, that little circled object that I explained on the whiteboard, that's containing the source code, or at least a part of the source code that your app needs to run. And again, I'm using a web app, could be a database engine, no matter what database flavor, could be file server, could be a proxy server. So the functionality itself doesn't really matter. And my outcome of this process is this little container image. It's called Simple Commerce because my application is called Simple Commerce. You could give it whatever name you want. So right now it's waiting to be used. I could start up my container on my local machine, Docker run with the name of that container, and it's going to run on my local machine on port 80, port 80,000, whatever port you're going to define. Obviously, I already tested that out. I know my app is working, and I want to move this into an Azure environment. So the Azure environment, option 1, virtual machines. I'm not going to bore you with that. It's just running virtual machines, moving that container in a VM and running it. No rocket science, not really Azure oriented, I would say. So what is Azure Container Instance? It allows you to run a single container. And it's cheap. Why? Because you pay per second. If your container is running for 50 seconds, 70 seconds, 3 hours, you're only going to pay for the actual runtime. So that's quite interesting. What's the starting point? You need, oh, that's another acronym. I'll put it on the list. You need ACR. It stands for Azure Container Registry. It's the exact same idea as what I have on my local disk, but I'm going to move my container object, my little bubble here on the left-hand side. I'm going to grab it and move it into ACR. It's like a storage environment for container images, if you want. Where's my Azure portal? Over there. So you create an Azure Container Service using whatever way you like. It's or Azure templates or portal-based or CLI, PowerShell, so just like any other Azure resource. You create a service, depending a bit on the plan you select. You can store a lot of images or you cannot really store a lot of them. And the next step, it's literally firing a Docker command. It's called Docker push, meaning from my local machine, I want to publish this, I want to push this into ACR where you need to provide the name. And the outcome is that now my container ends up here. I first renamed it. There's some best practices you need to follow, that the name of your container object must reflect the name of the registry. It's a little bit of security if you want, that if the name is not recognized in Azure, it's not accepting it. So it makes sense. So from here, our container images, I got a couple of fallback plans if needed, are now waiting to be used. So step one, the most easy way, is going to your offline container image and selecting Run Instance, where you need to complete some details like any other Azure resource scenario. So your subscription, a resource group, the location where you want to deploy it, and some compute characteristics. A small web app, obviously 1 core and 1.5 gigs would be more than good enough. And you could also define if you want to expose this to the public internet or not. You click OK and it starts deploying. If you want more advanced options, come on. You can create a new one using the exact same thing, ARM template, CLI, PowerShell, Terraform. Any option is a good one. But it's going to give you a bit more options because right now the ACI service has no idea what you're going to run. Where the previous example, you start from the image and you're going to tell like, hey, ACI, can you please run this for me? But just to give you an idea, there's a couple of quick starts. If you like the 15-minute session, you want to play with it, but you don't know anything about containers or you don't have them, you could start with those ones. You can use the internal Azure registry, or if you have a registry somewhere else, the same Docker Hub as I talked about before, or you have it running in AWS, you have an on-prem one, you could also use those ones. It gives you some additional network options. So public means provide me an Azure public IP, private, give me an internal Azure IP in a VNet that you can configure, and you could run it behind a traditional load balancer, app gateway, traffic manager, you name it. If you have specific options for your container, like allocating persistent storage, where the data is not stored inside the running container, but somewhere on a file share in Azure Storage, for example, you could define it here. From there, you push the review create, and the outcome is my ACI. What it gives you is a running container. And it should show me my e-commerce platform. It's connecting to an Azure database, so it's only the web app that's containerized. The database is running in an Azure database SQL scenario. And to show you that nothing is different, I go back to my Windows web VM, the one that is running my web app. The exact same source code from Visual Studio. And eventually it will run fine. Now, it runs fine, it's okay, but it's not high available. There is an SLA, I think it's 99.9, but I don't know by heart, it's in our SLA documentation. But it means that it's good enough to run some baseline containers, but it might not be good enough for container workloads that need scaling, like maybe dynamic scaling, I have no idea how many users connect to my web app, but because of the pandemic, all of a sudden I got like 500 users or customers, potential customers maybe coming in every hour, and I need to scale. So if you're familiar with Azure Web Apps, allowing you to run web apps, you could also run containers. The benefit here is that it supports Docker Compose. It's a scenario coming from Docker that allows you to spin up a container workload that's depending on multiple containers. In my scenario, I don't have it. It's a single container, but you could have a web app front end, a file share container, a database container, and all three together build up your workload. If one of those three is not there, it's not going to offer your workload. That's what it means. And that's what you can achieve with Docker Compose. Everything that you might know from Azure Web App, hopefully you do, is 100% valid for Docker containers. The only difference is instead of publishing source code like you do traditionally, you're now going to publish a Docker image or multiple ones. Where it really becomes interesting is AKS. Why? Because the whole world talks about Kubernetes for the last 3-4 years. What is Kubernetes? It's a non-Microsoft technology that we Azureized. What it means is it's coming from open source Google world. It runs on all different clouds. You can install it on-prem. If you look at Red Hat OpenShift, it's a Kubernetes platform, Linux machines with Kubernetes inside. What we're doing with AKS is running Azure virtual machines, but you don't see them, you don't touch them, you don't manage them. And on top, it's running the Kubernetes service. I got 2 minutes left, going to be tight. What is Kubernetes? A little bit, I would say, taking away the magic. There's a Kubernetes brain. Officially, it's called the API server. But that's boring because we like to talk about microservices and serverless, and I call it the brain. That's where all the intelligence lives. Underneath, you're going to deploy Kubernetes nodes, where each and every node is a virtual machine running Linux. And you can deploy 50 of them, at least in one single cluster. You can decide on the virtual machine flavor. So this could be, I don't know, like a DS8 V2 or maybe V3 in the meantime, where each node in the cluster would be the exact same. So you cannot mix and match the VM sizes, but you can decide on how many of them. And why is that? Because within the cluster, we're going to run our containers. To make it more complex, Kubernetes calls them pods, where a pod can be a single Docker image, can be multiple Docker images, but they still talk about a pod. So I'm going to switch to my AKS environment, and I'm running. Come on, Portal. I know you suffered an hour ago, but I'm glad you're back. So I'm running my containers. A couple of them are literally containerized services within the Kubernetes system to run Kubernetes. So it's actually depending on itself. And I published a couple of other ones where you can choose the name, but in the end, they're all based on the same simple commerce, and it's running behind the load balancer, which means that, come on, our Azure service, this would be the service. There is my container, my simple commerce runs here actually inside. It runs with an internal IP, and we're going to expose it publicly because otherwise it doesn't really make a lot of sense to run an e-commerce platform if you're not making it publicly available. 8.7, I don't know. And up here, we're going to use a traditional Azure load balancer. But again, it could be an app gateway, it could be traffic manager, it could be front door, just like any other Azure load balancing service. It grabs a public IP, it's going to load. I'm not going to wait for it for now. You will see that up here. There's a little green image going up. But what's more interesting is that Kubernetes provides you high availability, scalability within that cluster, which means I defined in the settings file, it's a YAML syntax, pretty complex, and I cannot explain it in 15 minutes. But what I did is defining to Kubernetes, if you spin up my e-commerce example, I want you to run it high available with 5 replicas. So that's a setting in your YAML syntax that you define. Replica 5, Kubernetes, the brain knows whatever happens with my cluster, I always need to guarantee 5 containers. To the outside world, it looks and feels like it's one IP address or DNS name if you want. Behind the load balancer, if one of the pods is going down because I lose a node, Kubernetes is going to fix it. It's going to build a new node. It's going to repair the node. It's going to make sure that it's having 5 nodes. Out of 5, if I would drill down, but I don't have time to show you, it's going to run 2 nodes or 2 pods on one node, 2 pods on another node, and the 5th one will run on the 3rd node because that's like the minimal I need to have a high available cluster. And I think with that, I'm running a little bit out of time, but I gave you the acronyms. I gave you the different benefits between single ACI web apps, but running containers, and ultimately, I would say running Kubernetes, knowing that it's running on top of VMs, but we try to hide that away from you. And I got one last thing to offer. Not that you need to buy the book, but since John wanted to give something away for free, I have the full scenario, a lot more than what I showed in 15 minutes, where you can build the virtual machines, you can build the Visual Studio environment, moving it into traditional Azure Web Apps with SQL, moving it into Docker containers, moving from ACI to Web Apps to AKS, and all the way at the end, automating everything with Azure DevOps. How many attendees do we have, John?
I think we're around about the 40 mark.
Cool. Then I'm going to give away 4 free ebooks. Anybody else who wants to buy it, that's obviously perfectly fine. I would say at the end of the session, do some, I don't know, some raffle. Let me know, reach out, and I email them a free copy of the book. That's my little gift because I'm going overtime.
Oh, that's brilliant. No, thanks so much.
Don't worry, I love to
fantastic.
share my time, Peter.
You only needed 7 minutes. That's what you told me,
Yeah,
right?
7 minutes is fine for me. It's Azure Advisor, so it's rather a quick one. But once again, a nice session, I think.
I think on that note then, Peter, what we'll do, for those who stick around and fill in the feedback, we'll pick 4 people from the feedback later tonight, and we'll get your email addresses over to Peter, and he can send you a copy of that book. So, no, huge thanks, Peter. Oh, yeah, brilliant to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate such a difficult thing to get done in 50 minutes, but I think you did a grand job.
I can do the same in 5 days if you want.
No, if everybody wants to give Peter a round of applause, then that was brilliant. I obviously come off mute though, otherwise you're going to have to use one of those little emoji. There we are for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks so much. And on that note, we'll hand straight over to Wim then. How you doing, Wim?
Fine. Let me first of all share my screen. That's the first thing I need to do. I think you're all seeing my portal at the moment. So let me take this one. So everyone is seeing my slides now. So hello everyone, and thanks for joining, and welcome to this second lightning talk of this evening, titled "Let's Look at Azure Advisor, your free personal in-house cloud consultant." Before I start, I want to thank everyone involved in the Welsh Azure user group for setting this up, this online meetup, and for allowing me also to deliver this short talk. Let me also shortly introduce myself. My name is Wim Matthyssen, and just as Peter, I also live in Belgium, where I work as an Azure Technical Advisor. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, and since I think July last year, I'm also awarded as a Microsoft Azure MVP, which was and still is a huge honor. Community-wise, I'm a founding board member, just as Peter, of a Belgian user group called MC2MC, where we mainly focus on Azure and Microsoft 365, but we also keep an eye on security, Hyper-V, and I think the complete Windows Server landscape. Next to that, like you can see on the slide, I also have my own blog, https://wimmatthyssen.com. And I think like most IT professionals these days, and just like John, Peter, and all others, I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you ever want to reach out, ask a question, or just want to say hi, you can always contact me through my Twitter handle @wimmatthyssen or LinkedIn. I'm not such a sketch artist as Peter. So first, I have a few slides before I start my demo. So to start, I'm going to talk about Azure Advisor. It's really important that you know what it is, especially for people who don't know it or don't use it at the moment. For those, Azure Advisor is a free service which will give you a personalized best practices to optimize and secure all your Azure deployments. Azure Advisor is able to give you those recommendations, first of all, by analyzing your resource configurations, and afterwards by using that telemetry data that it gathers from various Azure monitors to give you those recommendations. Good to know is that it can do this for all your resources in all your Azure subscriptions, and those recommendations can be customized so that only recommendations are shown from the subscriptions or resource groups that are most important for you. For example, you can choose to only show recommendations for your Azure production or development subscriptions, and for example, not for your sandbox subscriptions, because those don't really matter for you. Or you can just show recommendations for some specific resource group in a specific production subscription. Next to that, you can also postpone recommendations, and this for a specific amount of time. Let's say you don't want to see a recommendation for 2 weeks because you think it's not important at the moment, or you just don't have the time to fix it because everybody is at a lot of Teams meetings these days. Or you can even remove or completely dismiss your recommendation completely, so it doesn't pop up anymore because maybe you don't find it important, or it's a resource that doesn't really matter for you. So you can also postpone. Currently, there are 5 Azure Advisor categories which can help you. First of all, you have cost. In the back, it's integrated with Azure Cost Management, and it will help you to reduce your cloud spend, and this by identifying idle or unutilized resources. A recommendation that can pop up, for example, is one that advises you to resize a specific EAS virtual machine, and this to a low-risk U family, for example. Then you also have the security category. Here for Azure Advisor integrates with Azure Security Center in the back. And by combining forces, it will give you recommendations based on the Azure Security Benchmark. I think it's currently version 2.0, if I'm correct. And that will help you not only to prevent, but also to detect and to respond to all kinds of threats. An example of such a recommendation can be one that tells you to enable, let us say, secure transfer on a specific storage account where it isn't enabled. Then, third category is reliability. Previously, it was called high availability, if I'm correct. This one will give you recommendations about fault tolerance and high availability. An example of such a recommendation is one that informs you, for example, if you're using a VPN gateway and you're just one, to set it up as an active gateway to receive connection resiliency. Then we have operation excellence. In this category, you will find recommendations which can help you to achieve process and workflow efficiency. One of the recommendations that can be shown is one that advises you to create an Azure Service Health alert. Also, Azure Service Health is another free service, just like Azure Advisor. And that Service Health role can help you to notify you when Azure problems in the backbone are affecting any of your resources. So that's one that can pop up there. And then the last one, performance. This one can help you to improve the speed and responsiveness of your running applications or any workloads you're running in Azure. For example, a recommendation that can pop up is one that helps you to improve your app service, and this for its performance and reliability. If you're working with Azure Advisor or using it, there are a few things you should keep in mind. First of all, you can use Azure Advisor just like almost every other Azure resource these days through the Azure portal. You can use Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, ARM, Biceps these days, or even the REST API. To be able to access Advisor recommendations, you need to have the owner, the contributor, or at least a reader role. And these on the subscription level, on specific resource group you want to be advised about, or on a specific resource. And like I already said, to gather all information, Azure Advisor integrates not only with Azure Monitor in the back, but also with Azure Security Center for the security recommendations, with Azure Cost Management for the cost recommendations, and also with the App Service Advisor and the SQL Database Advisor, for example. You should also know that whenever you implement or fix a recommendation, it can take up a day before it changes and it's processed by Azure Advisor. So the recommendation will, most of the time still be there for 24 hours. And then if you fixed it, it will be gone. And if you need to send, for example, recommendations to be solved by specific teams in your IT department, so maybe you have some security people working there, or you have DBAs, you can also download those recommendations in a CSV or in a PDF file, and then you can send it through them via that way. Another good best practice is also to create Azure Advisor alerts. Those will help you to get informed by receiving an alert through, for example, email or SMS about any new advisor recommendations you want to be notified about. And this without the need for you to open the Azure portal, because you can receive them through email, for example. Just keep in mind that whenever you create such an alert, depending on the amount, the type, the Azure Monitor Action Group, or the used alert trigger, it can cost some extra money at the end of the month. So most of the times it's not that much, but if you if you receive a lot of alerts and you configure in a specific way, know that it can cost you something at the end. So those things are not completely free, like the rest of the Azure Advisor resources and tools. These days, you can also configure a recommendation digits to send you a summary, for example, with all the recommendations you want to be informed about. And you can get that summary in your email, for example, on I think it's a weekly, a bi-weekly, or on a monthly basis. So this will help you not always to need to open the portal, to go in the Azure Advisor and look through the recommendations. You just, maybe on a Friday, you let it send out through an Azure Monitor Action Group. You receive the recommendations, you look at them, and you try to fix the ones you want. But more interesting, but enough talking. Let us start with the most interesting part, a demo. So let me open my Azure portal. So let me go. So here it is. So Azure Advisor, at the moment, you can use it from different ways, just like a lot of Azure resources. For example, you can use the global search bar. Just type in Azure Advisor. It pops up, you click on it, and you can use it. The nice thing is, if you use it from this way, you also directly get a connection to the links, which can guide you to the Microsoft documentations. And from there on, you can look up the stuff you want to do. So the docs and Microsoft Learn are, like almost everybody knows these days, are completely integrated in the environment. You can also open it through the sidebar, but for example, you can also open virtual machines. You can open a specific virtual machine. Let me see if you scroll down, where it is. Let me look. I'm always looking over it. Oh, it's under the settings. You have specific advisor recommendations, and the recommendations shown there are specifically for that VM. So if you want to dig a little deeper or optimize a specific resource, you can also look for the recommendations through that specific resource and fix them from over there. But let us go to the overall blade. It was a typo. There it is. Like I already said, you have 5 categories these days. First time when you open it, it will refresh your recommendations. The portal, like Peter said, had some problems earlier today, but luckily they're fixed now. You can see the 5 categories. You can simply click on them. For example, I have my costs. At the moment, I don't have any cost recommendations. Most of the time, resources must be running. I think it's around 30 days before any cost recommendations will be made. The thing is, my environment is a test environment. I set up things, delete them again. So mostly they're not running 30 days. And that's probably why I don't see any cost recommendations at the moment. But for example, let us look at the security ones. You can simply click on it. You will see all recommendations. The nice thing these days, for example, is that you also have those quick fixes. So if, for example, I click on this specific recommendation that has a quick fix next to it, a quick fix will directly help you to fix the problem in less than 2 minutes almost. You get a description. You get even the steps you need to take to get the problem resolved. You can simply click on, for example, this is a storage account. You can enable the secure transfers. You can save it. And by this, you already fixed or resolved that specific recommendation. Let me go back. Let me open it again. A nice thing is over here on the premium blade, you can see that I can select every subscription I have. I can select a specific subscription, and it will give only the recommendations for that specific subscription. Over here, you can see all active recommendations, but you also have the option to use to look at the postpone and dismiss. Maybe you have a colleague that has postponed or dismissed a specific recommendation, and you want to see those, what he has done. You can click on that one. Let me first select all my subscriptions again. For example, you can see there is a postponed one under Operation Excellence. You can also click on that one, click on the recommendation, and you can, for example, if you want to have it back, you can simply activate it again. It will be activated again. So doesn't matter if somebody postponed or dismissed. Now you have the option to activate them again or to look at them at their own. Oh, I clicked it closed again. Another nice thing is, for example, if you're running a lot of infrastructure as service VMs, you can create a specific rule. It's a CPU utilization. Based on that, it will give you recommendations to move your VM to a lower sized VM or even to buy reserved instances. If you want that specific number of 5%, you want to change it for a specific subscription, you can just click on it, edit it, and you can move it up to 20%. So in this way, you can more customize the behavior that it will give you. For example, under the resources, you can also see all your subscriptions. You can see already unmarked my sandbox subscription because I don't want to see any recommendations that will be created for that one. For example, I have also a pre-prod subscription. If I don't want to see recommendations for specific resource group, I can just unmark them, apply them, and those recommendations will not be shown anymore. These days, you also have the Azure Advisor score, which is currently also in a public preview. It's a new way to help you in your optimization journey because it aggregates all advisor recommendations into a single score, just like you know from Azure Security Center where you have the secure score. And by opening this in a glance, you can see it, and how higher the number is, the more reliable, secure, and cost-efficient your environment is. You can do it for all your subscriptions. You can do it for specific subscriptions, but it's an easier way to get everything managed. You can also configure an alert. You can see I already configured an alert specific for the reliability, for this specific subscription and for this specific resource group. For my other subscription, my management subscription, where my prod subscription is under, I also created an alert with all recommendations. I just created an Azure Monitor action group for that. You can see an Azure Monitoring group, action group for people who don't know it, as a group of collection of actions, such as sending an email and an SMS, and those actions will follow up when an alert is created. So if that specific alert is created, the action group will send it through, for example, if you enabled email, it will send it through your email address. To create an alert, you can simply do it. You choose a selection, a subscription. If you want to do it for a specific resource group in that subscription, you select that one. If you want to do it for all, you leave this one blank. You can choose a specific category. If you leave that one blank, it will be for all categories, or you can choose a specific recommendation that you want to see. You select your action group. I created it in advance. You select it. You give it a name. Well, let me say demo, enable rule creation, and you just save it in a resource group. Let me say my dev storage. And you just create alert, it will be created, and you can go on. Let me close that one. The same counts for the recommend digest if you want to receive that summary at a specific amount, if you want to have bi-weekly, weekly, or monthly. I already created one for my management subscription, so I receive a summary every 7 days, and it will also be sent through email. If you want to create that one, same as the alert, you select your subscription. You choose your frequency, let us say on a monthly base. I only want to see my reliability recommendations. You can even choose your language, and I can even set it in Dutch, but I will not do it at the moment. So let me put it in English. Once again, you specify your Azure Monitor action group, you select it, you give it a name, demo, enable recommendation, and you just click on create. It's that easy, to be honest. And now, for example, you can also use Azure PowerShell. think I still have a few minutes. So if my Cloud Shell opens rather fast, let us hope. It's not that fast at the moment, it seems. So there it is. Just wait, yeah, authenticating to Azure. Okay, so for example, if you want to see which commands are available, so it's not opened rather good. Let me open it again. I think I tapped somewhere. Let's hope it's connecting. Okay, now. There it is. So for example, if you type in just get help, Azure Advisor, you can see there are 5 commandlets you can use at the moment. So for example, if you do this one, Advisor recommendation, it will tap. Let us choose a category. Let us say, for example, security. Then it normally will show a lot of recommendations for that specific subscription. This one is my dev subscription. It's my default one. So you can see you can use PowerShell and CLI, but for example, you can also use Resource Explorer. So if you open it, Resource Grab it is, sorry, I need that one. So if you open it, you can see there are also a lot of queries specific for Azure Advisor, but I already created one I use regularly at customer environments. So this one, for example, will give me all cost recommendations about a specific subscription. So if I just run that query, but I don't have any cost ones, let me quickly change this one to security, for example. Yeah, don't look at the rest of the custom language in my query, but normally, yeah, there it is. So you can also use a resource graph to list your recommendations. If you have a lot of subscriptions, you want to pinpoint specific recommendations you want to see. You can also use a resource graph, which is a nice Azure resource these days. So let me go back to my slide to close off. So last thing before closing off, that I want to say is to catch Azure Advisor in one sentence, you can say Azure Advisor is your free personalized in-house cloud consultant. And if you're not using it yet, I would advise that you start using it. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any question about Azure Advisor or any other topic, you always may contact me through my Twitter handle, or you can even simply scan that QR code and connect with me on LinkedIn. So I think that's a little bit more than 50 minutes, but yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Wim. That was awesome. It feels funny watching all those little virtual hands clapping, doesn't it? Popping up on the screen, right? No, I can't thank you enough. Obviously, both Peter and Wim, both fantastic talks. I'm sure everybody will agree. And obviously, huge thanks to you guys for popping on and joining us tonight. No doubt we'll catch up over Twitter world fairly soon. So awesome. Right. OK. Onwards and upwards. We're now going to hand over to Mark O'Neill, and we're going to have a virtual data center tour. So, Mark, if you're there, the floor is all yours.
Very good. Can I ask John that this session can't be recorded? Unfortunately, content we're presenting is sensitive, so I'll ask that we can stop the recording if that's okay.
Not a problem. I will.
And what I will say.
Wow. You know what to say? That was amazing.
Yeah. So
wow.
I'm only 3 minutes behind where I started, so I'm not so bad.
No, I mean, honestly, Mark, obviously I've been on socials as that presentation's been going on, and yeah, honestly, I think I echo everybody in the chat. That was superb. Absolutely fantastic to see a superb presentation. One of the best I think I've ever seen, Mark, to be honest. So.
Thank you very much.
See, I mean, so many mind-blowing things that that you've taken us through there. So, yeah, I think
so
you're going to expect
if there
a
are
few
questions and follow-ups from the guys, please let me know. I'll happily pick them up. And if there is a request that we can do this again, I'll certainly happily come back to the group and follow on that session with a little bit more detail. And maybe it won't feel as much like horse racing next time.
No, absolutely. I think you know, I think that goes without saying. If that's there, I think yeah, give it a little bit of time, and I'm sure we will be back in contact, Mark. And can't thank you enough. That was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if yeah, no, absolutely. Anytime.
Stay
I think
stay well, and any questions or thoughts, please feel free to come back towards me.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Good stuff, guys.
Absolutely superb.
Take care. Bye bye.
Speak to you soon. Okay, well there we go. A huge thanks to Mark. Huge thanks to Peter and Wim, obviously, for our lightning talks earlier on. But we're not done yet. We appreciate we're probably going on a little bit longer than maybe we normally would, but it's quiz time. So for those of you that have, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not surprised everybody stuck around. That was such a fantastic presentation. You know, obviously tonight's been brilliant as far as I'm concerned. You know, even if I do say so myself, you know, the speakers we've had on tonight have been fantastic, and yeah, I'm shocked. I'm just speechless. That I love that presentation. Then, so anyway, let's get on with the quiz, eh? Matt, I'm going to hand over to you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Yeah, tough act to follow. That was pretty mind blowing. And I've worked there for 2 years, and that was mind blowing for me. That was absolutely mind blowing. So come on then, we've got, it's a selection of questions around Microsoft and data centers tonight. So we're gonna, if you've got the access to the Kahoot app, or you can go to kahoot.it, enter that code in, stick a name in. How many numbers have we got? We're looking at.
We've got about 30 in the chat.
30 there, so all names coming in now. Excellent.
So are we doing first and second prize, Matt?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we've got.
So. It's been a fantastic session, so let's. Plus, we've got the books as well.
We've got the books, so stick around for the code for the feedback after the quiz, everyone, and obviously give us the feedback and obviously Peter's generous offer of those ebook codes. We will pick 4 random winners from the feedback. I think that'll be a cool thing. And obviously, don't forget to tweet and win for your chances to win a Welsh Azure User Group T-shirt and stickers.
Yep.
Who doesn't want them?
They're awesome. I have some sat around here as well. There we go.
Yeah.
Ready to go. I haven't got my shirt on tonight, though.
Do you know what? I came over this morning, completely forgot to put my hoodie on. How bad is that? I got my shirt behind me. Oh, that's what I should do is... We do need a teddy bear to go with it. You're right, Andrew. I think that's...
Yes.
No, wasn't it a dragon? Somebody suggested a little cuddly dragon with a Welsh Azure User Group shirt on. I think that
right,
somebody
20
that.
Minute or so left, and then we'll see who else wants to join, and then we'll kick off. Any more for any more? Oh, we lost one. What happened?
Oh, phone ran out of battery.
Okay, should we kick off? There we go.
I think so, yeah. Unless is anybody struggling, say now in the chat or whatever, hold your peace. If you're struggling, we can hang fire. If not.
No, I think we'll kick off. It's getting late.
Cool.
Okay. So your first question is, what was Microsoft's first name? So when Bill Gates was setting up the company, what was it first called? I'm not going to read them out because they're a bit waffly. Well, yeah, how many we got? 15, 16. I didn't know half the alphabets. No, it was Traffordata, apparently. Very first company they set up.
Did you get that right, Matthew?
No. And I made it up. So, leader, we've got one person who got that right. DP. Well done. Next question. What was the first video game Microsoft produced? Was it Flight Simulator 1.0, Microsoft Arcade, Microsoft Adventure, or Olympic Decathlon? It was Microsoft Adventure. See, they're a bit tricky this time, aren't they? Good spread on the answers. Only 6 of you got that right. And Chris K goes into the lead with MD and Lionel S. Still on the podium. On to the next one. What was Microsoft's first acquisition? Tough, these. You have to be guessing most of these. Was it Hotmail, Consumer Software, Quadrian, or Forethought? You've got to be a real Microsoft nerd to get these. We've got some guesses coming in, I think. It was Forethought, apparently. 6 of you knew that one as well. Is it the same 6 each time? I don't know. Let's have a look. No. Chris W takes over from Chris K. Next one up. What was the name of Microsoft's portable media player? Was it Zune? Was it WinPod? Was it Microsoft Personal Media Player 2000 for Enterprise? Or was it Neo? That's a relatively easy one, I would hope. Well done. Oh, those guessing Neo. No, Neo was the cancelled 2-screen foldable. Chris W on fire. Nice. Moving on. Question 5. What is Microsoft's top selling product of all time? Is it Xbox 360, Office, Windows 95 or Windows Phone? It's clearly Windows Phone. Everyone loves Windows Phone. I love Windows Phone. I have 2 sat in a drawer here. And it was Windows 95, apparently, according to my sources. Chris
I'm
K.
laughing at Chris W's reaction then. It was kind of a taken back in amazement thing.
That's probably because no one buys a license anymore.
There were a lot of copies of Windows 95 stolen and bought. Question 6. When was the Windows Phone discontinued? 2015, 2017, 2019. Oh, never. It lives on in our hearts. I agree, Peter. Too early. We all love Windows Phone. The 3 of us that bought them. It was 2017. You're quite right. Oh, change at the top. Ace heads back into the lead. Question 7. What was Microsoft's IPO share price? Was it $3, $113, $2,673, or $21? For all of those of you that have got Microsoft shares, I wish I had them at the price it was IPO'd. That's right, it was $21 at that point, and it's now $250, I think. Ace still there. Hugh catching up. It's going to be close at the top. Question 8. Which of the following is Microsoft's earliest failed product? Was it Microsoft Bob, Windows ME, MSN Smartwatch, or Internet Explorer? There's probably some debate around that, but my decision is final. Microsoft Bob. Predates Windows ME. Depends on whether you class Microsoft Bob as a failure or not. For those asking what Microsoft Bob was, it was a very early graphical operating system. With the UI was like a fireplace, living room with a fireplace in it. Steve takes the lead. Oh, it's going to be a close fought thing at the top. Question 9. How many Azure regions have been announced as of April 2021? 50, 55, 65, or 70? Well done, the 10 of you that guessed 65. Steve's holding on to that top spot. There's other people catching up with him though. Question 10. Where was Microsoft's first international outside of the US office? Was it Mexico, the UK, Japan, or India? It was Japan. Well done, the 5 of you that got that right. Not Steve, clearly. Ross leads straight into the lead. Of course, Ross leads straight into the lead. What I guessed. Getting near the end of the quiz now. How many Azure regions support availability zones as of April 2021? Is it 10, 20, 30 or 40? It's 20, only 20 at the moment. Although there is a commitment now to have all future data centers, as Mark said, have availability zones available for them. Ross and Hugh fighting it out at the top. Question 12. What's the limit of number of VMs per subscription? Is it 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 or 25,000 per region? It's 25,000 per region. Good luck if you've got that many. You've got real problems. Only one person got that, and it was Ross as well. Oh, well done, mate. Question 13. What does RBAC stand for? Really big Azure compute, role-based access control, reality bites all consumers, or roses bought after conflict? Well done.
Not quite as good as the postman answer, Matt.
But close. We're getting there. There's more to come, I think. A couple of questions to go. Question 14. What was the code name for Azure? Project Raptor, Project Blue Puppy, Project Red Dog, Project Destroy AWS. Project Red Dog, yeah, that's quite right. 9 of you got that one right. And Ross still in the lead. Chris K. It's going to be a tight battle for second place. Last question. During Satya Nadella's build keynote in 2020, this code appeared behind him. What does that translate to in base 64? And you can see it on the screen there. There are 4 options there. If you decode that in base 64, it becomes a word. What was that word? Almost there. Time's almost up. A couple of questions to come in. It was devs. It was from the build keynote in 2020. And here we go. The results. In third place, we have Chris K. Well done, Chris. Second place, Hugh. And in first place, of course, it's Ross. Well done,
Yay.
Ross. Well done, Ross and Hugh, actually.
Brill. Ross, I don't think we need your email address, do we, mate? I think we'll just put it on the WAG account quiz winners card. Hugh,
give them extras to Hugh and Chris.
Are you sure, Ross?
Yeah.
Well, there we go, Chris. Well, if you're sure, Ross, there we are.
Yeah, go for it.
Hugh, Chris, reach out. Send me your emails if you can, please, guys. Put them in the chat for me, and I'll get those over to obviously get the codes over to you as soon as possible. Well done, Ross, mate, and thank you for that generous offer.
Yeah, well done,
really
Ross.
Appreciated for Hugh and Chris. So yeah, reach out, guys, if you can. Just obviously let me know your email. It's difficult because I got about 20 screens and can never see the chat at this point. So just somebody make sure put your email in there. Right, right. Let me just flick my screen back over while I can, just to wrap it up for this evening. Why is it they always change teams? Okay. Right, don't forget, guys, tweet and win. We still got, as well as those quiz winners there with the Amazon vouchers, we've still got, obviously, a T-shirt and some stickers, Welsh Azure User Group stickers to win. So get your tweets off. I'm sure you'll agree it's been a fantastic, session tonight. Huge thanks to Peter. Thank you to Wim. 2 great talks, and I appreciate, the guys both can deliver feature-length talks, and at some stage, no doubt, we'll ask those guys to come back to give a more in-depth talk, because they were fantastic sessions. And a fantastic, huge thanks to Mark. I'm sure you'll agree. I mean, the content and the information there that we've had tonight on the Azure Data Center tour was phenomenal. So it doesn't stop there. Save the date for our next talk. Next month, 17th of June. As you can see, we've got another 3 lightning talks. So we've got Baz Van Cam from Nerdio coming along to talk to us. We've got Jake Walsh, we've got Mark Jones, 3 great lightning talks that I'm sure you'll agree will be very interesting and worthy of watching. And then we've got that feature length talk. We've got Clive Watson joining us, and he's going to give us an overview of Azure Sentinel. So there we go, guys. In terms of feedback, like I suggested earlier on, if you can leave us your feedback. Huge thanks to Peter for the generous offer of those e-vouchers. What we'll do for the 4 people that are going to get those vouchers, we'll pick 4 people at random from the feedback. So hope you've all enjoyed it. Thanks so much to everybody, old and new. If you're obviously new to the session, thanks so much for joining. Really great to have you here. Please join us next month. And obviously, if you've joined us before, welcome back. And well done for Ross for winning the quiz. And huge thanks for donating to second and third. Hope you've all enjoyed it, guys, and until next month, leave us your feedback and we will see you then.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, guys. See you soon.